Good afternoon and welcome to Metro Home Theater Tech Tips. I'm Brent McCall.
I'm Adam Rogers.
And once again, we are socially distancing. Now tell us about today's show, Adam.
Well, we've got a special episode today. Again, we are bringing on another special guest with us today. In fact, we have two guests with us today. We're going to be talking about 70-volt audio. And whether or not you should use it on your system that you're currently designing or putting together for a client, or if you're designing one for yourself. And whether or not you should use it in that application or not. I mean, because
residentially or commercially.
Exactly, yeah. And so we're seeing more people using 70-volt systems inside of a residential application versus a commercial application. And that actually brings us to, what is today's episode brought to you by, Brent?
Today's episode is brought to you by the number 10 again, because last week I managed to pretty much blow the broadcast. So, when we say the number 10, what we're referring to is a 10-meter VLOX R2 10-meter cable that will give you a full 24 gigabits of bandwidth to support anything within the HDMI 2.0 range and take you into the beginning of HDMI 2.1.
That's right.
So if you put our passive 10-meter cable in today, you're good to go without any additional electronics for anything that you can get from Roku, UHD Blu-ray players, streaming devices, cable boxes, or satellite receiver.
Right.
And it takes you into where we're going with HDMI 2.1, because you can easily add the HDMI GA2, which is
Right there.
this product to it, to take you to 48.
Right.
So number 10 is today's sponsor.
And actually, it's really great that we brought that up, because our guest today just started bringing on some of our products. So I'll go ahead and introduce you guys at this point. We'll go ahead and switch over here. Gentlemen, welcome to the live stream. With us today, we have Chase. And pardon me, Chase, your last name for me if you fill us in.
Harrison, Chase Harrison.
Chase Harrison. And then we've got Jimmy Lindell as well. Both of you are from TruAudio. And we're really excited to have them on today with us so we can talk about the 70-volt. And correct me if I'm wrong, but you guys are now carrying our HDMI products as well. Is that correct?
Yeah, we actually are. Yeah, we have HDMI, and then we're starting to carry a lot more of your line, and just, continue to grow that relationship with you guys. So.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
First, I'd like to say, how is it they get the fine reclining
Yes.
and we're standing?
Yes. It seems to work out that way sometimes for us. Yeah.
That would grow. Well, to keep us in the camera shot, we had to sit down, being I'm 6'6" and Chase is 6'4".
And they're going to throw that up at us, too.
And it happens. It
Yeah.
happens. So, as always, everybody who's checking in on the live stream, thank you very much for being here with us today. If you have any questions for either Brent or myself that you haven't asked yet, or if you have other questions about what we're talking about today, being 70-volt audio systems, or even if it's something completely out of left field,
Or a
feel
suggestion
free,
or two.
or a suggestion or any ideas, feel free to throw that into the chat. We would do respond to that as well. If you have a question for Chase or Jimmy from TruAudio, we have the experts on the call or on the video with us today. So now is your time to get that information from them.
And if you have not already done so, please subscribe to our channel.
Yep.
Like our Facebook, our Twitter, and our Instagram. And I would assume the same for the TruAudio gentlemen.
That's right.
We'd love it. We'll take anything you give us.
Do you guys have a YouTube channel?
We do.
We do.
Awesome.
We got a YouTube channel for TruAudio as well as Vessel, and then we have all the social media platforms: Facebook, Twitter.
Now, I'm going to geek out a little bit here about the Vessel stuff because the Vessel product is awesome. It's really great. I haven't had a chance to do an installation with the Vessel system yet myself. However, the idea behind it, of course, is that you
I'm
can
going to
have
to plead complete ignorance.
I was going to
Tell
say
me
you
about
don't know very much
I do
about
not
it,
know.
and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, as I'm talking about it. But you have the ability to take your Apple phone, your iPhone, your iPad, or any Mac product, and you can do the AirPlay from that product to the Vessel system. To any of the different zones that you set up, or the combination of zones. And you can now also do the same thing with an Android device and get all of your stream and or all of the audio streams from those devices onto the Vessel.
Okay, so I'm going to have to ask, as a complete newbie and total unknown of this, is this a competitor to Sonos and Hios?
It is, yeah, I mean, pretty much.
It is.
Yeah.
Okay, then before we get into where we're going, since he brought this up, can you give us a quick explanation of what you think vessel is, so I will be a little bit better educated?
Sure. Okay, so we're excited about Vessel because for a lot of the reasons that we just talked about, we wanted to simplify the way that end users live and interact with their music. We didn't want to have to require anybody to go live in a third-party app or an automation app. So the nice thing about Vessel is it uses the AirPlay and now AirPlay 2 streaming architecture, as well as the Google Cast, also known as the Chromecast built in, and then Spotify Connect. So you can actually pull up, say, your Apple Music app, your Spotify app, Pandora, iHeartRadio, SiriusXM, whatever, and you click on the AirPlay icon or the Google Cast icon, and it will pull up all the vessel zones that are active within the
So
network.
we don't have to sign into Hios or Sonos or any of the other third party. It's just right there within the factory app.
Yes, sir.
That's awesome. And stop the sir stuff. I work for a living. Well, I get a paycheck anyway.
Yeah.
Everyone, I just did some changes to the to TruAudio's audio, so hopefully you can hear that a little bit better. Let me know if you can or not. So hopefully that makes life a little bit easier. But again, thank you for the chat, for letting us know what's going on. We've got quite a few people. Oh, Leo, good point. Leo was saying you can also Chromecast from a PC, like if you're using Chrome
like you do
web
here.
browser. Yeah, exactly. In fact, that's what I'm doing here to get that on the screen. But you can do that from the web browser as well and Chromecast to those PCs as well. Anyways, all that to say, great stuff. So why don't we dive into the meat and potatoes of what today's stream is about?
We have the whiteboard here for us to draw on, but before we get into that, please give us your overview of the advantages or disadvantages, if there are any, of what a 70-volt system provides to both a commercial and a residential installer.
Love to. You want to take that, Jim?
Yeah, so
You guys gonna flip a coin?
I know, it's easy, but the big thing with 70 volt is the ease of setup and functionality. And I know that for a long time, the hesitation with 70 volt was the acoustical performance, because there was this extreme night and day difference between ohms and 70 volt. And with all the recent technology and improvement over the last few years, 70 volts gotten to where you can't really tell an acoustical difference between a quality 70 volt setup as opposed to an 8 ohm project. So, when it comes to, commercial or residential, it's really based on, how many speakers you're putting in a zone and trying to look at the way of running the least amount of wire and making it as quick and easy of an install as possible for you and your, company. So.
Well, the one disadvantage to 70 volt is you typically lose the stereo effect, what a customer would be used to if they're wearing headphones, for example. An artist, when they're recording music, or somebody in Hollywood, acoustician that renders their tracks, sometimes they want discrete channels to come out of, the left and the right channel. And you can get that with 8 ohm. With 70 volt, that's a little bit more difficult to do. Generally, you see your left and your right channel mixed together in what's commonly known as like a mono sub. And so again, as Jimmy was mentioning, it's really important to qualify your customer and understand what they want in both the residence as well as the place of business, so that they can you can get exactly what they want.
One of the things I have noted as we're going forward, because distributed audio now with 70 volt, it is a whole lot simpler to set up a stereo zone for the first time. Can you switch me to overhead for a second?
I sure can. And in fact, if you'll run with that for a minute, I'm going to mess with their audio real quick one more time and see if I can't get that. So it's on you.
Okay,
right now.
Traditionally in the past, when you set up a 70 volt system, you would come out of your amp and literally just loop through all the speakers. You would parallel it all the way down, and you could keep going to as many speakers as you needed based on the size of your amplifier and the tap that you selected for the volume level of that speaker. Am I correct so far, Jimmy?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Okay. So now if you're running, say, 5 watts per speaker, which is a fairly low background, which is fine for ambient or white fill, and you've got 10 speakers, that's 50 watts. We traditionally looked at having 75 watts, but because of the more dynamic content now, I am told that you really want to have closer to 100 watts on a 50 watt load.
Yeah, so honestly, the amplifier manufacturer is going to be a big driver for that, depending on how they design and specify their amp, what sort of overhead they have in there.
Okay.
Generally, we are anywhere from 50 to 80%, and in some scenarios, you're doing 100%, so that you're only loading about half, so you got room to grow up to the full, 100% like you're talking about.
Particularly in a commercial application where you don't know how much you're going to have to fill.
Exactly.
Or outside. Okay. Now, what I have seen happening now is 2-channel 70-volt amps, so they can actually have left and right, and then have multiple, particularly in an outside where you'll go left, right, left, right, left, right around the perimeter, so you get the blend without that mono-point concentration. Now, I believe the Crown amps you guys sell are 2-channel, aren't they? For 70 volt.
They are. They are 2-channel, but we actually leverage one of those channels for the dedicated lows or subwoofer in the project, and then the other channel is to
if there's a subwoofer. Okay. Now, and one of the things I was talking with Jimmy about yesterday was the DSP capabilities built in, which really excites me. Because that is based on the customer selects his speakers, and you guys actually provide via email the correct programming to go into specific amplifiers to set the EQs for those speakers?
Yeah, so we preload all our Crown amplifiers. And I know a lot of other manufacturers do very much the same thing, because we were trying, most speaker manufacturers were trying to optimize the performance of that speaker so that the end user has a great experience. And so, yeah, all our Crown amplifiers come preloaded with the DSP settings on them. So you can pick the speaker you're putting in and make sure that it's performing on an optimal level without you going in and spending hours trying to tune it or doing the network yourself.
Now, what is the expected frequency response on a 70-volt system with, say, a good 6-inch or 8-inch pendant speaker now?
So that's a really good question. So if you're talking in general terms, depending on the manufacturer and the quality.
Well, I'm referring to your product right now because I expect you to know your product, possibly not all your competitors.
Yeah, that's good. No, so the only pendant style speaker we've got is an 8-inch. The frequency response range on that is about, and shameless plug here, Jimmy's going to pick it up, is our frequency range
on that. Don't sit on that.
80, yeah, really, don't sit on 80 hertz to about, I believe we're 28K, maybe close to 30K.
Okay, so it's effectively a full range speaker, pretty much anything, as much as you're going to get out of any standard 8-ohm speaker in its size.
Right. That's the one thing that differentiates us from some of our competitors is we have really high quality 70-volt transformers. We've done as much as possible to kind of open that range up. Where budget's a little bit more of a priority, you tend to lose that frequency range, so it narrows down a little bit.
Well, I'm sure.
It's just restriction dependent. It obviously would only probably play down to 200, maybe 120, depending on what we're doing with it. But with our 8, it is almost a full range. Yeah.
I'm sure the vast majority of people still think of 70-volt as a 8-inch pancake speaker in their dentist office.
Yeah, and this sounds like
$12.95 with brackets.
Right. Exactly right.
And honestly, the running on that, the sound quality really is gotten so much better. I've actually used 70-volt systems for myself. Now, again, one of the topics today was should it be more of a residential or commercial application? And this was a commercial application for it, but it was great because I was able to go the longer distances over that. So, really, talking about putting it outside on a patio is a great place to put it. We've, and in fact, we're working on, granted, I don't know if that's 70.
It's 8-ohm, but knowing what we know now,
we probably could have.
We would have done 70-volt.
Yeah. So we're working at the boss's house. He's got a really nice patio outside, and so
it's a long way.
We're going. It's quite a ways, and now knowing what we know about the 70-volt after talking with Jimmy and Chase ourselves, we probably would have gone for the 70-volt instead of the 8-ohm design in that setup. So it would have worked out really well.
Now, and interesting because we had it's funny how this stuff works. Mm-hmm. He gets a call right before you guys called in, which is what slowed him down answering your call.
Yes.
And the guy's pulling out an old A-bus system, which means he's got Cat5 running to each room, and then speaker wires from the A-bus keypad up to the speakers. And we were trying to figure out an answer. It's like, what about 70-volt? Because 70-volt travels reasonably well over 4 conductors out of a Cat5 versus 8 ohms because there's not the drop-off.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. We see that a lot, especially those A-bus systems, somebody who's forgotten or neglected to future-proof the house. So if they ever wanted to stray away from
Well, they just went cheap and put the Cat 5 in, and that's why it happened.
Exactly. So you're absolutely right. The nice thing about the 70 volt is you can get away with the smaller wire gauges over longer distances. You can typically run, 16 gauge over, 2,000 or 3,000 feet before you witness really any sort of volume loss. Whereas 8 ohm, 4 ohm, you're 300 to 400 feet, maybe 500 before you start seeing 5, 10, 20% drop off.
Right.
So on the A-bus style specifically, you're right. I mean, if you start, and again, best practices would say you try and do everything you can to get speaker wire retrofitted in and not use the category cable for any sort of conductor speaker. But if you're in a pinch and you absolutely have to use that, be mindful of obviously your amp load and what kind of speakers you're throwing behind it, and you could probably get it to work. But depending on the quality of the Cat, and if you overload it, that you could be asking for some problems there. But again, it's important to talk to your customer, understand expectations, and let them know.
My assumption is in this application, he's replacing a 6.5-inch ceiling speaker.
Yep.
Probably two-way, which I think you guys sell.
Yep.
What he does need at that point is 6 zones of amplification. That actually becomes the only real.
Yeah, so there's because 70 volt has been designed so much into the commercial application, they're really designed as just a background music thing. So there's usually at most 2 channels of audio in there. So you could do left and right, but for a multi-zone setup, do you guys have anything that you would see as a fix for that? If he had to continue to do the 70 volt design for the 6 zones of audio that he wants to have in there.
Are there multi-zone 70-volt systems?
Yes.
If there are. So there's a couple ways to look at it. I know Harman makes a really good multi-zone amplifier that you can use at 70 volt. A big part of that though is you still need sourcing. So depending on the application and everything else, you can get away with a lesser expensive, 2-channel or a single channel 70 volt amplifier, and then you can partner it up with say our new Vessel A1. That's a single streaming unit, and it'd be much more cost effective than potentially getting a much larger 70 volt.
Yeah, he was. I think his intent was to run it on 6 Yamaha Music Cast.
Yeah, he was going to get like 6 smaller 70 volt amplifiers, and then just use the Yamaha Music Cast as like a preamp at that point to then
For each zone.
amplifiers.
Yep, the Vessel would be a good alternative to the Music Cast, so that's not something he wants to do. Sure.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Fantastic. Now, tell me about the volume taps that you guys have on your speakers. Are they separate wires? Is it a selectable switch? How do you handle that?
That's a good question. On all of our 70 volt products, they're all multi-tap. With one exception, we have a surface mount outdoor 70 volt speaker that is called our OL70 V6. And it only has the ability to run in 70 volt with the multi-tap, but everything else we produce, from our landscape audio, satellite speakers, to our beat drop, which Jimmy just showed you, to our CL70 V6 UL that's right here, you can hardwire right into a single binding post or Phoenix connector, and then from there you can choose anywhere from 2 watts up to, in this scenario, you can go up to 25, or I think it's 25 watts, and then our beat drops go up to 60 watts. Go
Up.
Oh yeah, I forget we're on this. I'm used to the laptop.
Okay, to your right a little bit. To your right. To your right. There you go.
It's all backwards. I'm looking at the screen.
That's perfect. Okay, so it's just a rotary selector knob. That's perfect.
Exactly. Yeah, so on our in ceilings, we put on the front, try to make it easier in the event you have to go back and adjust.
Oh yeah, and much better than being behind it, which definitely is the pits.
Right. Well, the other thing too, I'll show you if I can get into it. It hasn't been closed all the way.
And it's also nice you're having to not pick a color, a purple, a pink, a blue wire for the different wattage taps.
Exactly. We were actually founded by integrators, so we try to make everybody's life easier when it comes to install. One other thing I'll show you in the back of our beat drop.
Okay. Go to your right. To your right. Okay. Can you tilt the top up? There we go, and get a little bit more to your right. To your right.
So
there you go.
So we try to rather than have to make it so you have to use wire nuts, we actually, on the back of our CL70 V6 UL on our beat drops, we actually give you Phoenix connector.
That's
so you
awesome.
can move it, actually complete your daisy chain right on the back of the speaker. And not have to worry about wire nutting anything together.
And that, of course, is one of the big advantages of 70 volt is just the ability to daisy chain.
That's right, yeah.
So you don't have to home run everything. However, if you have the opportunity, always home run.
Yeah.
Always
Yeah.
home run. It gives you lots of flexibility in the future. If you don't, you can daisy chain without an issue.
Right.
Yeah,
How are we doing on questions?
really good advice there.
So we've got a couple different. We've got two questions really right now. What's going on? So both of them from Leo. Leo, thanks for checking in again, man. It's great to see you in the chat.
You know, we need to have a welcome Leo banner.
Pretty much.
I know. Well, I was wondering how many questions we were going to get from Leo today. Yeah.
We love Leo. Leo's always in our chat. We love seeing him there. We've also got Andy Spoler from Chicago is in here as well.
Hello, Andy.
They rep you guys up in that area. They also rep us. And then we've got Ellen from DSG. So of course,
Hey,
we
Ellen.
all love Ellen.
Yeah.
So a couple questions. The first question is from Leo. He says, "Are you guys going to make an 8-inch in ceiling?" And I'm assuming he's talking about a 70 volt 8-inch in ceiling.
Yep, that's so we do have 8-inch 8 ohm in ceiling speakers, but you're right. On the 70 volt side, our pendant is 8 ohm, or excuse me, is 8-inch. We're looking at introducing an 8-inch in this form factor as well, where we've got an actual in ceiling speaker that's 70 volts. So that is on the product roadmap. We don't have an ETA on that just yet, but we're definitely looking at it.
So
So not by Cedia.
stay tuned. Stay tuned,
No, not
basically.
yet yet.
Okay. The next question that we have is also from Leo. He's asking how much of a fidelity difference is there between 8 ohm and 70 volts? So that's kind of
That comes down to the amp as much as anything, doesn't it?
That's going to be your speaker wire, your amp, and your source. All those are going to have an impact on the fidelity within the 70 volt system. If you've got a high quality transformer, a good quality wire, and a good quality amp, there's almost no fidelity loss. For the purists, those that will actually A/B test 8 ohm versus 70 volt, you will see some difference there. But to your average end user consumer, they're going to have a really hard time picking it up. So.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
By the way, tell me a little bit about your subwoofer since you mentioned that earlier, that your 70 volt sub.
Yeah, so we have that's more specifically in our landscape audio solutions. We have a burial 70 volt subwoofer that's a 12-inch, and then we have an above ground what we call our hardscape subwoofer that's available in 2 colors. We are looking at also adding a subwoofer into our pendant line that would be a 6 or an 8-inch subwoofer as well. That may be something we do have by Cedia.
That'd be ceiling mount, wall mount, floor standing.
It'd be a pendant. It'd be ceiling mounted.
It'd be a pendant mount sub.
That would be-
So it will look like this.
Oh,
It'll
okay.
be up.
So that
And then
that would work out really well as again in a commercial environment, or really
A large room in residential.
a large room in a residential environment. Let's say you've got a large back patio, and that you have some kind of overhang over. You could put a couple of the pendant speakers if it's high enough, and then you could of course put the subwoofer up there as well, so you don't have to do any kind of digging or taking up space on the hard surface. So you could actually hang it.
we do. We have a couple other options too. We have what's called our bandpass sub. It's not a 70 volt sub per se, but we have done some custom jobs where we've actually included a 70 volt transformer with it. It's an external mount. We've also done that to where we run the second channel on the crown in a 4 ohm or 70 volt. It still is qualified as a low voltage circuit. So as long as you've got the appropriate certifications in your area, you're okay.
Typically, we see anything at 90 or less, particularly in audio or in telecom, being safe for low voltage integrators.
Well, and that comes into place whenever you're doing security surveillance systems as well, because a lot of those run on 48 volts, and while it's not 70 volts, it still can be considered
just
a
so you guys know,
higher voltage.
Do not be holding a 90 volt telecom wire when that ringer triggers.
Oh yeah, give you a nice little zap.
Just saying for those old guys. Now,
Yep.
the biggest issue for me as an integrator is how many speakers I can put on a 70 volt versus, say, an 8 ohm. So if you'll give me an overhead real quick, we're going to do a quick math lesson.
All right, go for it.
So we've got 4 speakers in a zone, and they're all 8 ohms. Now, if I want to run these 4 speakers, I've really got 2 options. I can have an amplifier that works at ultra low impedance, or I can do series, meaning I go from the positive on one to the negative on the next.
Right.
Or I can do a series parallel, which is the most common. So we're going to lay these out real quick. And the advantages and disadvantages of both of them.
It's like you're getting called up to the chalkboard in
I am.
elementary school, and you're getting nervous. They're writing stuff down.
So when you look at a traditional system where it's parallel, and this is how you would do 70 volt, you go negative to negative to negative to negative.
Right.
Then you positive to positive to positive to positive. And this is great in 70 volt. The drawback is if you're doing this as 8 ohms, 4 ohms, 2 ohm, less than an ohm.
Right.
Your amplifier's going up in smoke.
Yep.
Now here's the other option. You come in, the positive, go from that positive to the negative.
Yep.
That positive to the negative, that positive to the negative, and then this back to negative or positive on your amp, and that to negative on your amp.
Yep.
Now, the advantage of this is it's 8 ohms, 16 ohms, 32 ohms, 64 ohms, give or take.
You are so very close on this one. You're going to go here,
Okay.
and then this is going to go here, and that's going to go like that. All right,
Okay.
continue.
So the drawback to this is the volume goes way down. Your
Yeah.
amplifier's happy
Yeah,
because it's a higher impedance, but your volume goes to the point you really can't hear what's going on.
just like everybody at the beginning of this video listening to TruAudio, they couldn't hear them whatsoever.
Exactly. Now,
Sorry about that, guys.
The second option is a split between the two,
Right.
where it's a series parallel. So you parallel two of the speakers together. But then you series those at the end. So this gets tied in sequence with that. So when you do this, it basically, you add it all up and then you cut it in half.
Right.
The drawback to that is every time you series something, you put it 40 degrees out of phase. Now, it's not 40%, it's 40 degrees. And how many degrees are there?
360.
Exactly. So the first one is not bad. The second one's a little worse.
Right.
If you've got a lot of these in a given area, you're at some point you're out of phase in the system.
Does that sound right to you guys? Cool.
Spot on.
Wow, thanks, Adam.
Listen, I'm just saying, we've got the experts on the show with us today, so we might
I
as well
feel
make sure
so
that
much
everything that
better
we
now.
say is perfect, right?
That's the big advantage of 70 volts. You don't have any phasing issues. And as long as your amplifier is big enough for the tap selection you have,
It's going to work.
you can go pretty much as far as you're going to go with anything in a residential or even a commercial application. That's why Disney, Universal,
Right.
Busch Gardens, NASA, they all use 70 volt systems.
Right. So when you're walking around, they can have one location where the
Everywhere.
amplifier is, and
Yeah.
that powers all of the other systems out there. So, so gentlemen, one of the things that, and correct me if you've already talked about this or not, but in a, and oh my goodness, it just left me, and I've completely forgotten what I was going to ask, and that's not a good thing because we are live right now. Pardon me. When you are designing these types of systems, when we're talking about the amount of power, there it is. When we're talking about the amount of power that we require for these systems, a lot of times people will say, well, you need to make sure that with 70 volt, you need to have enough headroom on the amplifiers in order to power all of that. And correct me, we didn't talk about this yet, correct? We did? Okay.
We did. However, here's the question, and that's a good start.
Yeah.
When you guys are looking at your pendant in a typical residential application, say 12-foot ceiling, pendants hanging down, and we want something beyond the station meditation on Amazon to listen to, what taps do you recommend?
Well, when we design most of our, pretty much 100% of our systems, we always design with the maximum tap setting because we find a lot of the end users don't necessarily, they're concerned about two things. Number one, does it look good? Number two, does it sound good? And how loud can I play? Now, you will get the occasional customer that's more worried about fidelity and everything else, and obviously us as industry professionals need to come and present all the available options to them. But typically, when we design all of our systems so that we can get the amplifier size and headroom appropriate and correct, we design with max taps, knowing that now we have the ability to go in and actually, if we need to dial down, maybe make some areas a little bit softer in volume or whatever.
And what is the max tap on your 8-inch pendant speaker?
60 watts.
Okay, and that's pretty comparable to any standard 8-ohm speaker, and that's still pretty loud.
Yeah.
What is the sensitivity of that speaker, 1 watt, 1 meter?
That's a good question. All of the TruAudio products are actually quite sensitive, quite efficient. I think the beat drop is the number 1 dB. So that's one thing we're proud of at TruAudio. We try and make sure our speakers are as efficient as possible, so you don't have to worry about getting too large of an amplifier to wake up the speaker. So typically you'll find everything as far as 90 to 93.
Okay, 90 to 93, okay.
Yep.
93 is quite efficient. Not quite clips, but still very efficient. That's awesome. So what else should I ask you guys that I haven't?
Well, the one thing we
professionals.
Yeah, the one thing you asked us about earlier that maybe we need to come back on is, you know, how does 8 ohm and 4 ohm compare to 70 volt? You know, you mentioned fidelity. To the purist, the 8 ohm and 4 ohm system will definitely give you a slightly higher fidelity, especially if you're comparing it to your $8.50 pancake speaker.
Well, hopefully
also,
we're not buying $8.50 pancake
exactly,
speakers.
Exactly.
And when you say higher fidelity, what exactly are you referring to? Is it a blending of the image? Is it frequency response? Is it depth, width, height? Is it that elusive whatever that most people can't hear, but some guys swear it's worth the money? What are you talking about?
I'd say all the above, honestly. So typically 70 volt, the reason why it's known for robbing fidelity is once you start converting that line voltage to the transformer, you tend to lose your frequency response range, so that narrows. So in doing that, you know, your most high frequencies, your most low frequencies get cut off. So if an artist has them in that range,
Matters, so
Yeah.
I wouldn't. Now, back to my question before I forget it.
Yeah.
Do you guys offer design assistance service?
we do. That's a great question. And yes, it's completely free. We have a little questionnaire we like you to fill out just to help us understand some of the priorities in the project. You know, where can we place speakers? Where can we not? What's the budget? What's the overall listening desires? You know, are we looking for more background listening, or we want something more foreground? And then our team, typically within 1 to 5 business days, depending on how backlogged we are, we get a free design, an actual design planned audio system to you. If you can provide a drawing to us, we'll actually go in and place speakers and subs right inside of the project so that you can deliver with your customer.
Do you guys work with the system design softwares? The what's the big one I'm completely vapor locking on now?
Oh, D-Tools?
D-Tools.
Yeah, D-Tools. D-Tools.
We have worked with D-Tools in the past. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And what's the other one? There's D-Tools and then there's Simply.
Portal.
No, Simpla. Simple? No.
Simple 360 or 360 something?
No.
I can't remember. Anyways, moving on.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, no. So you guys integrate with that, which is we do as well. So anybody using D-Tools can utilize that with it as well.
And then the other nice thing with like 70 volt and design systems is like outdoor audio. You know that's something that a lot of our dealers are starting to get into more and more every single season. You know, like over the last couple of years, we're seeing that growth happen more and more because people are realizing that backyard audio is an awesome opportunity. And with 70 volt, you can really do some amazing things and make some backyards really.
Do you have one of your outdoor 70 volt speakers in your possession to show us?
Oh, yes, we
Oh,
do.
look at that!
Whoa.
Look at the size of that speaker.
So this is our largest. This is our new AS3. It's an 8-inch polywoofer with a 1-inch silk-dome tweeter. Also has the ability to be multi-tap, up to 60 watts on this guy, down to 2, and then you can also run them in 8 ohms if you'd like.
That's sexy. Is that paintable?
It is paintable. We have painted them fire engine red, neon yellow. We've wood grained them. You name it. You're welcome to paint them yourselves. We can paint them for you. There's a little bit of
I was just going to ask, is it a service that you provide where you can we can give you the color code and you can paint it for them?
Yeah,
Very cool.
Absolutely.
If the dealer's painting it, does the grill pop off so he doesn't paint the speaker?
You know, unfortunately, no. And that's a good question. I'm glad you asked. So this is our smaller AS2. The reason we did that is we tried to limit as much that could come off the speaker to basically keep any chance for moisture seeping into the speaker. So we actually have some recommendations here on how to thin out your paint and how to get it to make sure you grill. But all of our products are IP66 rated, so for dust, shock, moisture, all that stuff.
So
Wall mount brackets, posts and poles and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
So one of the we just got a question in from our friends over at AWA Reps. they're asking, and I know nothing about this, so I'm going to let you all handle this one. They're asking for us to talk about two-way speakers versus the competition. So I'll let you handle that in the best way that you know how.
It's a really good question. So typically, you know, I'd say most speakers that are out there run in one of probably 2 or 3 different technologies. One is a truly mono one-way speaker, where you typically have kind of a little 3, 4, or 5-inch driver, sometimes maybe an oversized tweeter, and you're expecting that woofer or tweeter to basically play as much of the audible frequency range as possible. The reality is you know, physics is physics. We can't change it, and really, when you hear something, you're hearing the speaker vibrate in the air, and you can't expect one speaker, you know, or a single one-way speaker anywhere from 2 or 3 inches, 4 inches to be able to play that full range. So that's where you see a lot of companies now introduce what's called a two-way speaker, where now you've got, for example, on our CL70 V6 speaker, you've got a tweeter that's in the middle here in a coax type format. And the way that it's designed is the tweeter plays your most high frequencies. And there's what's called a crossover built into this that then says, okay, tweeter, you play all the high frequencies. I'm going to let the woofer take care of basically all the low frequencies up to a certain point. And then there's another step beyond that called a three-way, where now you're introducing a tweeter. The second thing, what's called also known as a mid-bass driver, and then finally you've got a woofer that tends to be your bass driver. Those three-way speakers tend to be a little bit more full and can play more of that full frequency range. So if you've got a single speaker, maybe like a landscape speaker, that is only a one-way, you're definitely going to be losing some fidelity and some detail there. And there's no way physically that you can fill up the living space that you're trying to hear audio with. So
well, and now we're kind of getting into the concepts of you know, using the different speakers to play the different frequencies. That's why you would want to have the subwoofer in place, so that your 6-inch, you know, speaker doesn't have to do as much work at that lower frequency. Instead, that's crossed over and passed over to the subwoofer to handle it. So that one 6-inch speaker can handle better the frequencies that are there in the mid pass versus your tweeter in the high, and then the subwoofer in the low. So they each get their own, you know, band. That's why you call it a band pass, I guess, of frequencies to use in that place. So we're really kind of starting to get into the talk about that, which honestly is a really good discussion.
Speaker design's a whole different world.
And I would love to talk about that with TruAudio again, because you carry more than just the 70-volt systems.
You guys do a lot of things, and you know, that's a good follow-up one in the future: speaker design and application for the room.
Right.
And on that note, let's take a fairly standard 50 by 50 backyard patio area. We're putting in, say, 4 of your outdoor speakers and a sub. What gauge wire do you recommend to be buried or pulled?
That's a good question. Typically, in all of our landscape audio deployments, we recommend 14 gauge 2-conductor, good quality, high copper purity content. If you can afford to get into a 12 gauge, that's even better. But do not use 16 gauge. You'll be sipping stuff through a small coffee straw when it should be much larger.
Now, in that application, is that in the 70-volt application, or is that in the 8-ohm application?
Yes.
Yes.
Really good qualifying question. So 14 gauge for sure in the 70-volt realm, but again, part of that is also going to be looking, if you want to stay in 8-ohm or 4-ohm for your backyard deployments, you need to start looking at distance from your amplifier to your speaker. If you need to be at 600, 700, 800 feet,
that's a long way. That's too far.
It is, but the way you combat that with 8-ohm, 4-ohm is you now need to you're looking at like a 12 gauge conductor, maybe an 8. You have to get really thick to be able to.
You need what you need is 12.4 and double up.
Yeah.
Which becomes a pain in the butt to terminate.
Yeah. So.
Awesome.
This has been some really great information, guys, and I know for myself I really appreciate it, because I'm still, even though Brent and I are here in the lab, I still do installations for different areas.
Just throw me under the bus and say I don't work for a living.
No, you don't. Let's be perfectly honest about that. So all that to say, this is really great information for myself personally. as we go into those things. And again, everyone who's in the live chat, thank you so much for checking in with us today as well. Keep the questions coming, keep the comments coming. We love to hear them. All of our repeat guests that are there, it's great to see everybody there again, as
Remember,
always.
when you buy their speakers, buy our wire.
Yeah. So with that to say, we are starting to run out a little bit of time here. I don't have any more questions at the moment for us on the YouTube channel.
There will be after this is over, but we'll get them to you and get answers out to the dealers.
Yep. So we'll get that out to them.
And I think we would like to discuss in another point in time in the near future. Let's get into A&M speakers and your design philosophy, because that is, you guys aren't just landscape and 70 volt.
Nope. No. We have a full line of obviously multi-room. We've got home cinema, high fidelity 2-channel, you name it. So we'd love to be back on.
Fantastic.
Great.
I'd really like to see you guys maybe in a slightly less comfortable position.
Or not being shorts.
That's
You
typically
know, yeah, but again,
Well, we'll let it
Yeah.
ride, right? So, Chase, Jimmy, what's the best way for the dealers that are checking in with us today to get in touch with you if they have any more questions, other than, of course, leaving it down in the comments or in the chat today, guys? Feel free to do that after this video. If you're checking in to the live stream after it's already ended and you're just watching the playback, still put your comments and chat and questions and everything else down in the comments below. And we'll get to you just as soon as we possibly can. And if it's a really good question, it may be something that we bring up in a later video when we talk about it, if we get Chase and Jimmy on again.
I'll call them.
And then we'll go ahead and get that set up. So what is a good way for them to get a hold of you, gentlemen?
So best way, because I do travel quite a bit for work normally. It's been a little while, but it's Jimmy@TruAudio.com. So JIMMY@TruAudio.com.
All right, perfect.
Chase?
You're welcome to reach me at chase@trueaudio.com, CHASE@trueaudio.com, and then if you want to make sure you get it responded to quickly, go ahead and loop in sales@trueaudio.com as well. That way a member of our team can jump in and help in the event.
I'm going to ask a bit of a history question here. How old is TruAudio?
Great question. TruAudio is 20 years old. We're coming up on 21.
Congratulations.
20-year anniversary this year. So
Yeah.
thank you.
You can,
Well,
you guys
legally
can
be
drink in
able
a
to
year. You guys will be able to drink in a year.
Yes, that's what Jimmy
We're
said.
pretty excited. We got a whole company trip to Vegas, which is an hour and a half down the road. So.
You mean Corona Vegas?
Yep.
Yeah.
There you go.
Hey, no one's there right now. We get VIP access everywhere.
Everywhere.
You get the whole place to yourself. You can do whatever you want. Well, on that note, I'd like to go ahead and plug the next couple videos that we have coming up, everybody. So as always, we're doing a Wednesday and a Friday episodes. So we have this Friday, we're going to be talking about surveillance and how to design a surveillance system around different setups. We have a setup with an analog system versus an IP-based system. So we'll be talking about that as well.
Which is going to be a lot of fun for me because I have no clue.
So you'll get to see more of me that day. All right.
More of my idiocy.
Yeah, there you go. So with that as well, next week, Brent, this is new to you. You don't know that what we're talking about next week, so I'll go ahead and fill you in right now. Next Wednesday, we're going to be talking about TV mounts. This is a topic that we have not talked about yet, and it's really important for us
near
to.
and dear to my heart.
Yeah, we need to talk about this and get some information out there. So keep an eye on us next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll be here again talking about TV mounts, and then Friday, the discussion Friday is going to be about HDMI extenders. And so we'll be discussing
Lot to talk about
when
there.
and where and how to use the HDMI extenders on Friday at 3 p.m. So we will talk to you then as well. As always, Chase, Jimmy, it's great having you on the episode today. Thank you so much for checking in with us. We would love to do this again as we can talk more about it. Today was about 70 volt. I think we should have, like Brent said, another episode about an 8-ohm or something
I want
else.
to learn more about your speaker design philosophy and what you guys are looking at when you're designing a speaker and how you fit it into a room.
Right, exactly. So, and then of course, I'm sorry. Were you? Nope.
I was going to say, we appreciate you guys having us, and we'd love to do it. We'd love to schedule a follow-up.
Now, just for what's worth, if you guys have a couple of attractive young ladies that can take your place.
Yeah, no
Okay.
problem. We'll make that happen.
Well, and Brad, we hope you live long enough to be in the next video.
That's honestly that's the biggest worry of myself. Is to make sure that somebody's there at least at some point. I mean, it maybe not him, but somebody there. So, but anyways,
Yeah.
all that
Yeah.
to say, Again, everybody, thanks for checking in with us. We'll see you all next time. As always, don't forget to reboot your equipment often. Brent, we'll see you next time, right?
I'm Brent.
I'm Adam.
We're out of here. Thanks.
Thanks,
Have a great
everybody.
day.
Have a good one.
Good. Bye.